Hello and welcome to the Albion Obsessed podcast. You join us on the back of a fantastic performance and fantastic result against the old gold Wolverhampton Wanderers. Got lots to chat about tonight, including a few transfer rumour rumblings. But before we get into any of that, let's see who we've got on the show tonight. We welcome back Joe. Joe, my friend, how are you?
Hello, Thomas. I am very well. It's been a very busy weekend in the Sayers household. My wonderful father got married to his wonderful wife, Sally, yesterday. So, a big shout out to them. I know my dad listens to this. Yeah, a very, very busy weekend. And it was nice today to just put the feet up and relax a little bit. But yeah, how are you, Tom?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Big, fantastic congratulations to your dad, and I wish him and his new wife a fantastic and happy marriage. Good skills, everyone. Good skills. I said to you jokingly on the group chat yesterday, Joe, it was nice for your dad to wait until Brighton had won just to tie the knot. Very, very committed to the cause. But no, in all seriousness, big congratulations, guys. Love that. We also welcome back Andrew. Andrew, my friend, how are you keeping?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad at all. Yeah, it's always good to be on here. So, yeah, and congratulations to your dad as well. So it's really, really good news for him.
It's been a good weekend all round. We've had beautiful weather, the sun was shining, the football was good, and we've got some love to celebrate there as well. How lovely. Of course, guys, we are doing a live show this evening. So if you are joining us live, don't forget to drop your comments and your questions down in the chat. We will be addressing them throughout the show. And if we've got some, we'll address some later as well. Doom, welcome to the show. You're talking about Matt Vifa and Adam Webster there, both of which were fantastic. Yet we're going to talk about those guys in due course. But just before we do that, I'm just going to refer back to Michael's comment, the first of the evening, about the awards night. So this week we saw the Albion Player of the Season awards, well-worthy winner in Jean-Paul Van Hecke, beating out Carlos Baleba and Danny Welbeck. Joe, Van Hecke this season has really stepped up. I remember, I know it seems like forever ago, we wondered whether we'd be able to replace Levi Colwill after his loan spell with us. But Van Hecke has been an absolute stalwart at the back, an absolute beast, and well worthy of this season's Player of the Season award.
Yeah, definitely. And I can't be blamed if he leaves. I didn't vote for Jan-Paul Van Hecke. I voted for James Milner. Just because I believe that curse is well and truly real. So I am worried that he might be picked up for a considerable amount of money this summer. But, I think he's a ready-made replacement in terms of captain figure for Lewis Dunk. I think he's stepped into that role really well. You've seen the videos of him in the changing room after games when we've won at Newcastle, for example, or when we've won another game. I can't remember which, but he was saying, this is the bar. We have to keep hitting this bar and we have to keep going. He seems to be that voice that the squad really listened to. And he's only 24. So he's got a massive future ahead of him. Hopefully that future's with us. But yeah, a huge congratulations to Van Hecke. It's been a season of a lifetime for him.
Yeah, it certainly has. And Andrew, of course, we talked there about the players that he beat to that award. Carlos Baleba, who's had a fantastic season in his own right, and Danny Welbeck, who has been a fantastic leader on and off the pitch. But no, do you feel like Van Hecke was worthy of this season's Player of the Season?
I would definitely say he's once Dunk retires from the captaincy, I reckon he will be well and truly in line for it. He's a great, he's a great leader on the pitch, even when Dunk is on playing alongside him, and I think he does a tremendous job. And he certainly knows how to get the team motivated, especially when we are kind of, if we're on the back foot. And he certainly leads in that way.
Yeah, he certainly does. And I've just starred a post here from Eternal Me about, for years, we have relied on Lewis Dunk so much for his leadership, for his ability to play the ball, his defending, of course, his blocking, his heading, his chest pass back to the keeper, his long diagonal balls. And it's always in seasons past been a real worry when Lewis Dunk has been out. But this season, I feel like Van Hecker and Adam Webster have really stepped up. And I'm going to enjoy talking about Adam Webster this evening, because I feel like his redemption arc, I don't know if you'd call it that, but the way he's conducted himself this season has been absolutely fantastic. So, yeah, we are going to be talking about Adam Webster in tonight's show, because I think we can all agree he put in a hell of a performance again yesterday. But more on that momentarily. Let's dive into the starting 11, Joe, because there was a few changes and it was a bit of a head scratcher to start with in terms of who would play where. So just a reminder on the starting 11 yesterday: Bart Verbruggen in goal. And then we had Tariq Lamptey, Van Hecker, Webster, Estupinian, Vifa, Baleba, Ayari, Minte, O'Reilly, and Welbeck all in the starting 11. Adingra and Matoma only made the bench. And it was a bit of one of those sort of lineups that you'd expect from Graham Potter, maybe sort of having a bit of a head scratcher as to who would play where. It turned out, Joe, that Lamptey, the right back, played at right mid, and Mats Vifa, the centre midfielder, played at right back. But it turned out it worked out quite well. But what did you make of the starting 11 when you first saw it?
Yeah, well, Tariq's got that ability, hasn't he, to play in that position, and I think maybe as his career progresses, he might find himself a little bit further up the pitch. Anyway, and he can put in some delicious crosses. Did so yesterday. And Mats Vifa at right back over the last couple of games has been a real revelation. He's maybe not the paciest guy, but his positional awareness and defensive awareness as well, and the way he goes forward sometimes he's really powerful. Seems to be that sort of big lad that you need to just power through a team sometimes. And I thought it was quite a good combo to have the little man and the big man running up together. So yeah, I love Tariq Lamptey. I love his attitude, the way he sort of keeps bouncing back from injury setbacks, finds his way back into the team, shows why we've signed him on a new deal countless number of times. And I think, again, is showing that maybe we should be considering putting him on a new deal again. But, the injuries, when do you look away from that? When do you then replace him and say we need someone a little bit more consistent? But it's a really tough call, because Tariq is such a incredible human and a fantastic player on his day.
Yeah, he can. It just it was almost fitting in a way that he left the pitch seemingly injured, and that might be the last we see of him in a Brighton shirt. It would almost be sort of, I don't know, just the way of the world. One of the big talking points, Andrew, in the starting 11 was once again our captain Lewis Dunk did not make the match day squad due to injury. Adam Webster steps up and fills in that role. Were you surprised at all that Webster returned so quickly from his injury, or especially given he's quite injury prone? Were you quite comfortable seeing Adam in the team sheet?
I think you have to believe what the manager believes, and if he's fit and he's ready to go, then why not? He clearly wants to play. Yes, he's injury prone. We all know that, but if he's ready to start and he wants to get out there and do his bit for the team, then absolutely. He's another great replacement for Dunk as well, if Van Heck, didn't want it for any reason. So having having that quality within the team is a great asset to the team and the manager, and it's a big dilemma for him as well.
Yeah, it really is. And I think we've sort of said in the group chat today about how Lewis Dunk has sometimes been rushed back from injury because of him holding the armband. And I think it was at some point earlier in the season, Webster had come in for a period of games. It was Webster and Igor, I believe, at the time. And neither of them had put a foot wrong. But Dunk came back from injury, moved one of them out of the squad, which I think at the time might have been Igor. Again, I can't quite recall. And you sort of think, well, why? Because I know he's the captain, but then he goes off injured again. And I think that's been a bit of a story of Lewis Dunk's season, brought back a bit too soon from injury. And it just makes it really difficult to settle the defence at the back. Joe, a quick word on Adam Webster before we lose him into the wider game. I genuinely think that Adam Webster has had a terrific second half of the season. Like, genuinely, I think he's come in. He's been such a brilliant professional. He hasn't had a huge amount of game time due to injury at the start of the season, but ever since he sort of came back into the fold, if you like, halfway through, he's been absolutely excellent, absolutely brilliant. And this was a player that had almost become a bit of a joke for his mistakes at Albion. How brilliant has Adam Webster been for us?
Yeah, he's clearly taken on the roles that Fabian Hertzler wants from his defenders quite well. Obviously, with a De Zerbi style team, that it's very high risk, high rewards sort of stuff. That you have to have centre backs that play with their feet and can make passes and stuff like that. And Webby's got that in him, but he's also got the tendency to make a mistake when he's under that sort of pressure to be a playmaker sort of centre back. Which is ridiculous that we're talking about playmaker centre backs. But he seems to really fit the mould with Fabian. And had he have been in the side all season, if you take the performances that he's putting in at the moment, you'd be talking about a player of the season contender again. And I think that's one credit to Fabian Hertzler and the way that he's got Adam Webster playing and the confidence that Adam Webster seems to have back. And two, just a massive credit to Adam Webster because he's taken the stick. He's deactivated social media accounts because of stick from Albion fans, which is ridiculous. And he's stayed professional. He's stayed being the Adam Webster we all know and love when we see him in the preseason videos, and he's loving life, laughing. And he just seems to stay the same no matter what's going on the pitch. So it's a massive testament to his professionalism and his belief in himself that he can fight back and be the player that we saw under Graham Potter when he first came to the club. So I love to see it because Webby is like one of the most genuine blokes in the world. So yeah, and he's a Sussex lad as well. So what's not to love?
Yeah, he always comes across really genuine and really like a really decent human being whenever the club do any media with him. We kept a clean sheet yesterday. The last time we kept a clean sheet, Forrest, who was at the back, Adam Webster. I'm not saying the two are related, but
they are.
But they are. No, we would have kept a clean sheet last week if the referee hadn't been so utterly useless. But we move because we're not here to dredge up the past. We're here to talk about the future. Andrew, in the opening stages of the game yesterday, both sides seemed to sort of be going hell for leather. Both sides went close. And one player that we're going to chat about a bit today, Matt O'Reilly, he sort of almost had the earliest opportunity for Brighton as Minter sent in a really inviting cross from the left-hand side. And if O'Reilly got a touch, it would have probably ended up in the back of the net. Eternal Me has said in the chat about Gruder playing at 10, but what have you made of Matt O'Reilly playing at 10?
I think the way he played yesterday, I thought he played really, really well, to be honest. Like you say, he was very unlucky with that first opportunity. And it was just, it was a good quality ball. And he was just slightly behind on pace to get there. And even if he'd got a toe to it, it could have got, it may well have got a touch, it may well have gone in, but just that fraction too late. And I think that denied him. But yeah, fantastic player. You can't fault his abilities at all. He's had a tough old start with the Albion, and and he's come back and he's, improving himself every time. Yeah, so really, really kind of happy with him. He just needs a bit more game time, I think.
Yeah, I think he's definitely sort of benefited from João Pedro's absence through suspension. We've used him sort of in that double pivot in the middle. We've used him as a 10, and I think that's what I like about Matt O'Reilly, his versatility. He can almost play anywhere in that midfield three. Although I like him attacking. He just, whenever he gets the ball, he just has that sense to go forward. Just staying on Matt O'Reilly, Joe. There was that loose ball out from Sal, something that we sort of were really good at. Our high press yesterday from goal kicks, or because Wolves like to play it around in their own half. Our high press was excellent yesterday, and Matt O'Reilly received a really loose back pass from Jose Sá, and he was on the halfway line ish. Would you have liked to have seen him have a pop, Stevie Sidwell style?
Oh yeah, Stevie Sidwell style. You can't go far wrong with a Stevie Sidwell goal. Yeah, I mean, I think as Andrew said, he needs more game time, and I think if that was somebody who had confidence, for example, if that had fallen to Jack Hinshelwood, he probably would have had a go, or Carlos Belay probably would have had a go. But yeah, I think as Andrew said, if somebody's got that game time, they've got that sort of extra little bit that they need to notice that opportunity and to just take it first time. Obviously, he's tried to be semi-smart with it and play it to Minter, but then Minter's just absolutely spooned it, and it doesn't even make 10 yards, I don't think. So yeah, it was frustrating.
It was with Minter. We have the sort of the meme about Dingra being the wacky wailing inflatable tube man. With Minter, you just don't know what pair of boots he's going to have on. He's either going to have his I'm going to play a 10 out of 10 game today, or he's going to have his banana skin boots on. And yesterday he seemed to be having his banana skins on, because that touch when Matt O'Reilly fed him the ball was just, I was like, oh mate, come on, Minter. Obviously it didn't matter in the end, but yeah, I would have liked to have seen him at a pop. And as you both say, perhaps that's down to confidence, lack of game time. But hopefully next season he'll get to it. And I mean, we're already having questions in the chat about what next season may look like, as we obviously coming close to the end of this season. I will star them and we'll chat about those later. We have to give Wolves their due, though. I think Wolves looked really dangerous when they were delivering balls in from wide positions. And there was a moment in the first half where they had a free kick and they clipped it in wide, and just the Wolves man just peeled, and he was just completely free in the box. And thankfully, he, it went over. It was a bit of a difficult angle. But even so, Andrew, early warning signs from the opposition, and perhaps something that we needed to be aware of.
That first half hour of that game, we were very much under the cosh, and Wolves gave us a really, really good game yesterday. And they have a lot of dangerous players that can create, like we saw yesterday. And it's kind of, yeah, we were lucky. We were lucky a lot of the time. It's only because we've been able to get through the worst of it. We've been able to kind of control the game a little bit. You get the moments of the game where you're kind of very much kind of tracking back and defending really, really well, like we did. And yeah, got to give credit to Wolves. They piled on the pressure, and if their finishing had been better, it could have been a different game altogether. But we managed the game in the way that you would hope, and we came out and we were a team that looked as if we could, go on and score a few more goals. But so yeah, really kind of, it was just a good performance by ourselves, and we've got to be really, really kind of happy with it.
100%, mate. I thought we've often sort of not lambasted the team, but we said like last week when we were on the show about the way we played the game. And I thought we played a very similar game today. Defensively, we were excellent yesterday, really good at the back. So it was really nice to see that solidity. Of course, keeping a clean sheet, which was, I think, only our 8th this season in the league, was obviously a huge benefit. Of course, we'll talk about some of that, fantastic defending a little bit later. But it is worth just, as you say, Andrew, noting that Wolves were on a great run. I think they lost against Man City. That was their first loss in, I think, 7 games or something like that. They were the form team in the league. So the fact that we sort of went there and did what we did, played as well as we played, was excellent. And I thought, we really needed to, sort of like point that out, because I think it just makes it really impress upon everyone just how well we did. Talking of how well we did, Joe, let's talk about the goal that wasn't a goal, that we sort of might have been ruining the opportunity to get Danny Welbeck into double figures if it hadn't been for a Lita incident. But let's talk about the goal that wasn't. Quick free kick, which I thought was really smart. I think it was Lamptey puts in this delightful cross that just sort of sails through the Wolves box. Minte went to play it, didn't touch the ball. Welbeck gets the slightest of slight touches and it goes into the goal. Ruled out for offside for Minte. Correct call?
I think probably because of how close he is to the keeper. But then when you look at that in isolation, as the goalkeeper, the actions he makes, he still dives the same way as to attempt to save Welbeck's shot. So I don't think he's necessarily anticipating a touch from Yankuba Minter. So then is he interfering with play if the goalkeeper's decision hasn't been impacted, but could have been impacted because of how close Minter was to the ball and the goalkeeper? So it's one of those things where it's like, we could have had VAR looking at it for 5 minutes and had that thought process. But I think because it was so close that it would have, I don't know. It's a really complex one because you can look at the goalkeeper's movement in isolation, or you can look at the whole picture. And that's what VAR have done, really. And that's what you want them to do. You want them to look at the whole picture. So it's probably the right call, yeah.
I don't know if you guys have seen it, but on Match of the Day, they did this weird sort of AI thing, and they talked about it. And I think a lot of the pundits were saying that it was not just Sarr, but the defenders as well, because the argument was, well, if Minter wasn't there, the defender would have probably cleared it. So I sort of got it. It reminded me a lot of the McAllister goal of the season that was never a goal, because of Mwepu went to play the ball even though he didn't touch it. So yeah, I think it probably was the right call. Whether I would be so keen to say that if we had gone on to lose, I don't know. But hey ho, we won't have to find out too much. But no, it was chalked off for offside. Danny Welbeck was onside, but Minter attempted to play the ball. Thankfully, though, Andrew, we didn't have to wait too long to find ourselves on the score sheet. Now, this will be another point of contention. One of the things that we have, as a club, have been criticised for the last, since Potter came in, really, is playing it around at the back. And Wolves did exactly that. Mats Vifa, who had been having a brilliant game up until that point, continues to have a brilliant game. He pressures Cunha. He wins the ball. He barrels into the box and is brought down. The ref obviously points to the spot as it was a clear foul, but only a yellow card was given. So, Andrew, before we talk about Danny Welbeck, in your opinion, should the Wolves man had been given his marching orders for that foul, considering he was the last man?
It's a difficult one again, isn't it? Because, if he was going to be given his marching orders, surely VAR would have intervened, and they would have said, right, that's a straight red, But it's just, I don't know. Sometimes it's just the way it goes, isn't it? It just depends on what the referee's doing. He's, at the end of the day, he's awarded the penalty. That's a big enough punishment sometimes, for because it could lead to a goal. So I think he's lucky, but there were other people around him. But it's just kind of one of those things, and it's kind of we get given the penalty, and obviously the end result is that we take the lead. So
yeah, a lot of people on socials, and I think they even brought up on Match of the Day as well, were bringing up this idea of the double jeopardy law. So according to the laws of the game, a player who fouls in the penalty area to deny a clear scoring goal opportunity is not automatically sent off if they make a genuine attempt to play the ball. But Joe, was it a genuine attempt? He got absolutely nowhere near it.
I'm just watching it back now. It's not really. No, it's a last minute or a last ditch tackle because he panicked and didn't know what else to do, and he's made himself look like he's gone for the ball, but he's just taken Mats Vifa out, and basically taken one for the team in the hope that Jose Sarr might score the penalty or we might miss it, because there were 3 Albion players around Mats Vifa. So you would hope Mats Vifa would make the right pass, like he didn't do it at the Amex in the reverse fixture. And yeah, we probably would have scored from that. So yeah, I don't know if there's a genuine attempt for the ball. So yeah, it's one of those things. Again, is it not? And the laws of the game are so all over the place that nobody knows what's a red card, what's a penalty, what's offside anymore. So yeah, again, probably the right call by the letter of their crazy loophole laws. But yeah, for me, it should have been a red card.
I think what made it difficult for me is I watched the Bristol City playoff game the other night, and Bristol went down to 10 men for a very similar incident. The Bristol City defender, last man, gives away a penalty, but is also sent off. And I know people might point to it and go, "Oh, but it's the Championship," and blah, blah, blah. But it still just points to the bigger issue of the inconsistencies in officiating in the game. Because yesterday, Cunha is deemed to have attempted to play the ball, but the Bristol City player the other night was deemed not to. It's just so open to interpretation, as you say, Joe. So, for me, I was quite angry at the time. Thankfully, that didn't impact the game. But I must admit, when he didn't receive his marching orders, I was very much a case of, we're going to have another poor refereeing performance again, another poor officiating performance again. But as I say, thankfully it didn't happen. And yes, Rod, as I know, Championship, they didn't have VAR, which I find weird because it's like the biggest games of their season and they don't have VAR. I find that really weird. We've lost Andrew. Hopefully we'll get him back momentarily. And I know it's apples and oranges, but even so, it just frustrated me a little bit. And again, just as I said, points to the wider inconsistencies in officiating. But thankfully, Danny Welbeck tucked away the resulting penalty, which means officially, Andrew, Danny Welbeck reaches double digits for the first time in his Premier League career. 10 goals this season for the Albion. A really brilliant moment for Danny Welbeck to score.
Delighted for him. Absolutely delighted for him. What a player he is. Absolutely sensational player. And he deserves it massively. And I hope he can continue this goal scoring form for the next couple of games, and then going into next season, and hopefully make it even more than 10, because he's got such quality within himself. If he can keep himself injury free as much as possible, we stand a really, really good chance next season.
I think they said it on Match of the Day. I think this was the most games he started in a season since his time at Arsenal. Or was it Man United? I can't remember which one of it was, but basically said that it was the most starts he'd had in a season in a very long time. Joe, a quick word on that guy Welbs. He's had a brilliant season. His fitness has been excellent this season. His goal scoring has been really strong. Quick word on the man.
Yeah, he's a fantastic professional, and many may have thought that when he made his move to Watford, that was probably his career done. A player that was incredibly injury prone at both United and Arsenal, especially, and making a move to a team that at the time were really struggling to stay in the Premier League. And obviously, we've picked him up on a free. Relatively low risk signing, obviously picking him up on a free, but the wages may say different. But again, he's one of those ex-England professionals that has come into this football club and has changed the fortunes of this football club. Adam Lallana's done the same. James Milner was huge for us in Europe last year in terms of off-the-pitch duties. And Welbeck has just been absolutely incredible for us from the moment he signed. I remember so many lockdown goals that he scored. I remember so many goals that have just been so important for this team. And I think he's easily sort of in the line to be spoken about as an Albion icon of the Premier League era for sure, because yeah, he has been fantastic for us. Obviously our all-time Premier League top goal scorer as well, 10 goals in the Premier League this season. Long may that continue, because I absolutely love the bloke.
Yeah, he's a top bloke, and as Posy just said in the comments, he's also an excellent role model as well. I think he's just a consummate professional, absolutely brilliant. He doesn't pull any punches. I think it was the other week he said about things not being good enough, and the standards and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, really, really top bloke is Danny Welbeck. So really happy for him that he's hit that milestone of double digits, and he continues to push on as our Premier League top goal scorer. Wolves, though, they weren't content by going a goal down, and nor should they be, considering it was at the Molineux. In the second half, Wolves were very much sort of the team that was up in the tempo, Andrew. And, as we've already talked about, the defensive heroics, but I also want to talk about Bart Verbruggen now, because he made some really important saves, not just in the second half, but in the first half as well. The one in particular that caught my eye was when Adingra had come on, and they got behind Adingra on our right-hand side. And the Wolves player got the cross in. Van Hecke gets the slightest of touches, but it would have been a tap-in if Verbruggen hadn't, gone out there and parried it. Just how excellent was Bart Verbruggen again yesterday?
I know Bart's got his critics, and every player has their critics, but as a goalkeeper, you feel it more, because you are, that's your job, and it's about making sure that you keep a clean sheet yourself as a goalkeeper. And to be able to pull off some amazing saves, whether it was in yesterday's game or whether it's in previous other games, shows his quality, shows how much talent he's got, and shows that, if there are outside teams that are looking at him, good luck to him, because he's our player, and the club will do everything possible to make sure that he stays with us. And yeah, he's just got pure quality, and you can see that in every game. He does make mistakes. They all do, but the important ones are there are some very important ones there to keep us in a game. And yeah, really, really proud of what he's doing.
Yeah, two really strong games back to back, and you mentioned about they all do. I mean, look at Sarr yesterday. He put himself under pressure with that chance from O'Reilly. Some sloppy back passes as well. But that's also part of our high press, and that's why we did so well. But Bart, yeah, he seems to be getting his confidence back. Some of the comments made by Herzler in the week about him being the undisputed number one is excellent, and Bart's sort of response has been really sort of filled with humility, which is really nice to see, not going to his head. So yeah, it was a really strong game, Joe, defensively and from our goalkeeper yesterday. We will talk a bit more depth about our right back yesterday, because I think he deserved his own little section towards the end of the show. But how impressive was our back line yesterday?
Yeah, really good. And Purvis, it's been a weak-ish link recently, but I thought he was pretty okay. And yeah, the whole back four were just, doing what they needed to do and understood their task. And Wolves have been the form team in the Premier League for the last 7-8 games or wherever it's been, ever since their new manager came in, and they've lifted themselves sort of away from that relegation zone and now above United and Spurs, which is amusing. But yeah, I mean, they were always going to pile the pressure on, and for our back line to soak that pressure up and give us a platform to then go on and get the second goal with Brian Gruder was just a huge credit to them. And as Andrew said, Bart Verbruggen, his quality is there for all to be seen. And if you're the last line of defence and you make a mistake, it's going to go in. And they are highlighted. They are sort of emphasised when a goalkeeper makes a mistake, because it 9 times out of 10 leads to a goal. So, like we said across the last few podcasts, we have to be patient with him. He's only 24 years old. There's huge teams looking at him, so we should be absolutely wanting him to be our number one, because he's the Dutch number one. Bayern Munich want him to be him to be their number one as well. So yeah, I hope the club do everything they can to keep him. But if he does move on, I think we're probably in a pretty good position in terms of goalkeepers to have the natural succession to him.
Yeah, and more on that a bit later. You may have seen, listeners, reports about some contingency plans, but we will be chatting about that later. Quickly to Dermot in the comments saying, sorry if he's going off point. Is this Brighton's second best ever top flight season, regardless of making Europe? Yep, certainly in the Premier League era. I think regardless of how the season finishes, it will be our second best, as I think we have already beaten the point tally that Potter got us when we finished 9th. And I think if we win our remaining 2 fixtures, we're only 1 point behind the De Zerbi 6th season, I believe. I could be wrong though. So yeah, still the second best season regardless, which Fabian Herzler, brand new to English football, is a hell of an achievement. Phil is saying Bart is great, huge potential, but has he saved any penalties? I wonder how much homework he does, as he tends to go the wrong way. I think I remember, Phil, something about the Dutch team's national coach. He said about Bart not being the best penalty stopper. So I think, yeah, his penalty game isn't brilliant. But, I don't know how much homework he does. You'd like to think, like many goalkeepers, he will analyse the kick takers, the penalty kick takers before any game, knowing which players are likely to take the kick and which way they're likely to go. But I do agree, he hasn't saved one for us yet. And I think we've given away the second most amount of penalties this season. So doesn't bode well. The only slight criticism I had of any of our players yesterday came in the second half. Now, of course, we all know how the previous fixture against Wolves ended. It was a calamitous 10 minutes of really poor sort of game management. And I thought for the briefest of moments, we would see that again, because we got into that sort of last 10 minutes phase. And Adingra played a P-roller across his own box, which is something that we as grassroots youth coaches tell our kids never to do. But he plays this little P-roller to no one in particular. Gomez sort of has to lunge in to try and make sure that the Wolves player doesn't get there first. The Wolves players were calling for a penalty, but thankfully that wasn't given. But the loose ball was picked up by a Wolves striker who lofted it high over the bar. A bit of a let off, Andrew, and probably the only moment where you'd probably go, oh, that was a bit iffy defensively.
Yeah, I think if you were to ask Adingra himself, he would probably say that he made a bit of a boo-boo at that moment in time, and his teammates have basically bailed him out of it, and probably a lack of attention to detail, and yeah, I think he's kind of we were just lucky that either that Wolves were just slightly off the pace yesterday. They weren't, it could have been a lot worse, but we survived it and we come away with the 3 points and the 2 goals. So, we have to be grateful for that.
Yeah, 100%. As I say, it was probably the only moment of the entire game where I sort of got mildly annoyed at anyone. Welcome, Aaron. You have joined us on this podcast this evening. How are you, mate? You all right?
Give me 2 seconds, Tom. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, mate. I'm very good. How are you?
Yeah, man, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. We're just at the point where Brighton are about to score their second goal. What did you make of the game yesterday in general?
It lacked bits of quality during the game, I would say. I don't think we were particularly great in the first half of keeping the ball. I feel like we were wasting the possession quite often. I think Wolves, to be fair, their also defensive calamities were there to be seen. I think they're obviously the first goal being a penalty from a mistake from Cunha giving the ball away, but that could have happened 2 or 3 other times. But other than that, I don't think we can really complain too much. It's 3 points on the road, and they're hard to come by in the Premier League, if we're being brutally honest.
Yeah, they certainly are. Although I think Molineux seems to be a bit of a happy hunting ground, and I know that you were.
Yeah, I was speaking to a lot of Wolves fans yesterday, and they were saying, "Oh no, we never play well against you guys up here." And I was like, I look back, and yeah, our record up there is very good, which is a surprise, I have to say, because they always think of Wolves being quite a tricky fixture for most teams in the Premier League. But for us up there, it seems to be a happy hunting ground, which is a nice thing to have.
Yeah, it certainly does, and I hope you enjoyed your journey up to these parts.
Yes,
yesterday.
it was. They were talking funny, Tom. They were talking funny. It was very peculiar.
Win Wolves, eh? We. That's what they say. I don't say that. I speak the Queens. Yes, they do talk rather peculiarly around these parts. Let's talk about it then, Joe. The second goal, the one that sealed the deal after sort of our moment of sort of head loss. Well, I say our head loss, Dingra's head loss. Another loose pass from Wolves, something that Aaron has already alluded to. They were doing quite a lot yesterday. It was a sort of hit and hope ball out from the back that Mats Vifa, just plays the simple header towards Dingra, who, runs brilliantly towards the goal. He finds Gruder, who chips it over the onrushing Sarr. He scores his first Premier League goal. Brilliant finish, emotional celebration. What a moment for the lad.
Yeah, great moment for him, and I think a moment that is going to spark even more good moments that we're going to see from Brian Gruder. He's been heavily involved in a few really good moments for us recently this season. Obviously, getting the assist for Mitoma's equaliser against West Ham. I thought he's just been excellent, and has come off the bench, has really bided his time, and he's had to, because obviously the quality we've got in his positions. He's had to play on the right. I really like him in the middle. I think he could be really effective there as like a shadow striker type option. And brilliant finish for somebody that hasn't scored yet this season and is probably low on confidence. And the celebrations are there for us all to see, and it's just such a lovely moment when somebody gets their first Premier League goal after dreaming of it as a kid for so long, and then to do it, to pretty much seal the win for us. Just magical for him.
Very much so. Andrew, quick word on Gruder and the goal. What have you made of sort of his cameo appearances as of late?
It's probably been quite frustrating for him, but he's a player that will do a job when he comes on. And that goal yesterday, absolutely, really, really, I'm just delighted for him. He's worked so hard, and to be able to put that in the back of the net with a little bit of quality on it, because we don't really know how hard it really is to do that kind of chipping it over the goalkeeper, because you got the goalkeeper rushing out, and it's kind of you only have a split second to think about it. But yeah, for him to go and do that and make it his very first one, hopefully he will have many more to come going forward. And so it's like Joe said, his celebration said it all. So
Yeah, overcome with emotion at the end. And I know that Hersler said in his post-match interview about how he'd gone into the locker room and said, "Oh, it was hard. It's hard for a German to give a compliment to another German." I thought that was just a bit of a strange thing. But Aaron, we've got a plethora. I'm going to use the word plethora, a plethora of players who can play at 10. Obviously, only one player can play at 10, unless you play 2 10s. Where do you think who's going to be our starting 10 next season? If you think about Georgie, you've got Gruder, Enciso, Buenanotte, Pedro. Who for you sort of stood out in that position this season?
I think it will have to be Ruta. I think, if I'm honest, I think that's the logical sort of bet, I would say, is to play Georgie in the 10. I don't think we'll keep hold of Enciso, to be honest with you. I think we'll sell him, and I'm not overly fussed about that. I can see Gruder really, if he could play him out wide if we need to, where I don't think he's as effective as he is in the 10, but I'd rather have him out wide than Ruta out wide, and then keep Ruta in the 10. It's a great finish, though. Yes, I know you pointed out on it, but it was a superb finish. It's probably the only good thing Dinger had done in that half was play that ball through. But yeah, it was a fantastic finish, and it summed up a really good, really solid performance. I think it's the word I do. I don't think it was fantastic. I'm not going to put that up singing the praises. It reminded me very much of Newcastle away in the league. That kind of gritty determination. It just felt, when they were on top for sort of that 15, 20 minutes, it felt more like I didn't feel like they were going to score. And I haven't had that for a long time. And it's normally the other way around. It's normally, oh no, they're gonna concede, because that's just what we do. But I maintain the fact, and I can't believe I'm saying these words, we look better defensively without dunking that team.
Don't we, Joe?
Yeah, it's facts. You can't say it's not. And I think that's honestly the reason why I felt so confident in the back four. Is I just felt like Webster was winning everything, Van Heck everything. I think Purvis actually played quite well, to be honest with you, and he's been dire the last 6-7 games. Wayfair was superb as well. It was just defensively a really solid display. And obviously, if you don't concede goals, you've got a better chance of winning games. You know, it always starts at the back. Clean sheets win you games. You know, and that's massive for us, I think, in the grand scheme of things. Especially the fact that, I mean, when it was 0-0, Brentford were 1-up, Fulham were 1-up, and it was like, you know, we need a goal. We need something from this. And then obviously, luckily, we got the penalty. I think that Wolves couldn't seem to play out from the back at all. And I think you just go long, because getting our press was superb yesterday in that first half. And it's been the best it's been all year. Well, not for all year, probably for a while. Like, the players really wanted it, and it showed. In every single one of their performances, minus Adingra, I thought they were all solid 8s and 9s. I don't think you can complain at that. I really don't.
Yeah, I think, as you say, it's that ability to win, gritty, the ability to maybe not play the nicest looking football, but to grind out a result. And I thought we were really good at that yesterday.
And it's something we haven't been able to do for a lot of this season. The start, maybe sort of like the start, sort of October, September sort of times. Yeah, we were doing that. We haven't had like a proper gritty win for a while, really. And I think that's what felt. It felt good. It felt good being up there. I have to say, the atmosphere was superb. Yeah, it was just an overall very good away day. Very good away day, and long may it continue into Monday. Well, next Monday. Yeah.
Let's certainly hope so. Although, as I said off air, my Monday is going to be particularly good tomorrow. Going into work in the West Midlands, get to sort of go, yay, yay us. It was, as we say, like a gritty performance. We probably deserved a similar result last week against Newcastle, but didn't get it. I've put it off long enough, Joe. Let's talk about the man who's been filling in at right back as of late, Mats Vifa. An absolutely phenomenal game from him yesterday. I think, well deserving of, the plaudits of man of the match. We've got to talk about the redemption arc a little bit. Obviously, he gave the ball away when we were up to, we were rushing forward, 4-on-1. He's got the ball. He plays it. It's intercepted. Wolves go down the other end and equalise in like the death of the game. So to come back against Wolves, put in that performance is just it's brilliant. Played a hand in both goals, really solid. And just to put it out there as well, he joins Yves Bissouma and Moises Caicedo, joint top most tackles made by an Albion player in the Premier League. So the Yves Bissouma one was against Palace in 2018, Caicedo against Chelsea in 2023, and Mats Vifa against Wolves yesterday. I mean, just an absolutely phenomenal performance from him.
Yeah, and you talk about the redemption arc of this game in isolation, but as well for ever since that mistake going forward, I know there's been like maybe one or two other mistakes, but he's a new player to the Premier League and he's getting used to his new surroundings and new roles that Fabian Hertz has given him, and he's taken into this role really well, playing at right back. I think he's been solid when played there, and he's just a really solid player that's just growing into his Premier League game a little bit more, and the more game time he's getting, just the more composed and the more sort of, somebody mentioned in the chat, football IQ. It just seems that the IQ of knowing what you need to do and how you need to play to win a Premier League game. He seems to sort of radiate that energy, and it then radiates through to the players around him as well to also work as hard as how hard he works. So it's a massive credit to him, and he's been and going to be a big player for us. So I can feel it.
Yeah, definitely. And again, versatility. Andrew, any sort of arguments there? Was he the man of the match for you, or did you have someone else in mind for that particular award?
No, I think he played incredibly well. I think he did a really, really good job yesterday. And okay, he's had his critics in the past with the way he's played, and every player, like I said before, every player has that. But you have to then pick yourself up, even from a mistake. In whatever game you're playing, you pick yourself up and you go again, and you actually make yourself better if you can, because that's and the manager's got full faith in him as well. You can see that, otherwise he wouldn't be playing him. And it's just it's nice to see somebody that he seems to be comfortable on the ball, but yeah, I think he just needs to play more, and I think that's what they're trying to do, trying to get him into the games more as well. So yeah, pleased with him. Yeah, it's a learning thing. It's a learning thing for them all.
Yeah, definitely. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Andrew. The more games you play, you get that fitness, you get that sharpness, the better you tend to play. Aaron, you've sort of mentioned already about Van Hecke and Webster being excellent. We've talked about Weaver. Any other players that you sort of want to pick out and to say that they've done really, really well?
I mean, you could probably, I think he goes kind of under the radar a little bit, but Danny Welbeck yesterday, he was dead on his feet from like 70 minutes onwards. Like, he was done. He just could not give any more, but he just kept trying. And I think Hertzler said it in his post-match interview about how well the medical team had done to keep him fit. And like, imagine if we didn't have him fit right now, we would have no striker. Like, I mean, we wouldn't have a striker, and that in itself is crazy work. You know, I mean, it would be unfortunate. Obviously, Ruter out, Pedro out, Welbeck out, and then Ferguson playing. Well, being at West Ham, I said playing is a very, very, very loose term. Yeah, it would have been difficult if he hasn't stayed fit, and he's been crucial. I think he's crucial to the way we play. But for me, I probably would have gone man of the match with Webster. For my, and as you rightly know, I'm a very anti-Webster person, but I thought he was magnificent yesterday, absolutely magnificent. And Van Heck looked a lot more comfortable with him alongside Webster alongside Van Heck than he does with Dunk next to him at the minute. And also, one thing I've noticed is that Webster doesn't go on those crazy runs where Dunk will just try and step into midfield and pretend he's Pirlo for a minute and then loses the ball and gets outpaced by a slug. So, you know, it's swings and roundabouts.
That was supremely well put. Yeah, as you said, I think earlier, Aaron, it didn't seem possible that sort of, you know, we'd be going, we look better defensively without Lewis Dunk in the team. I think that just shows how well Van Hecker and Webster have been playing, but also the sort of the fall off a little bit, which in itself is quite sad to see because obviously, you know, from with Dean to Wembley and all that. But hopefully, I really hope that we can keep Webster and Van Hecker in defence for the last 2 games, which means that Dunk would actually get some time to recover. I think, you know, we've got to stop rushing him back just because he wears the armband. Let's look ahead then to Liverpool, our penultimate game of the season, Joe. Yesterday was the last game of João Pedro's suspension. Obviously, given a straight red for violent conduct, missed 3 games. A lot of the talking points on things like North Stand chat are, does he come straight back into the team? Now, for me, my opinion is he only comes back into the team straight away if Welbeck can't play. For me, the team stays as it is. What about you?
Yeah, don't fix what ain't broken. Is always my phrase. And Welbeck is fit to start. We've got a semi sort of extended period now between the Wolves game and when we play against Liverpool. So hopefully we can get like Carew back as well, fully fit, and have him starting and give Trent one last run for his money before he buggers off to Spain. It would be nice to see Carew give him a very nice goodbye. Yeah, I think Liverpool have shown that they can be vulnerable now. Now they've won the league and the pressure's off them a little bit. Obviously, they lost to Chelsea and Arsenal came back in the second half to draw today. So I don't see any reason why we can't give them a really good game and hopefully get something in our pursuit for European football. I think Brentford play Fulham, so one of them is going to drop points. Hopefully that's a draw, and if we can win the game, would be a huge bonus. I don't know if we are going to win the game. Obviously, very tough against the champions. They want to be sort of edging towards that 90 points mark, I'm sure, by the end of the season. So, yeah, it'll be a really good game, and I'm sure we'll have all of the tools that can be available for Fabian Herzler.
Yeah, Michael's just put in the comments about Trent being booed when he came on today. Yeah, that was a moment. I wonder if we'll see that again in the remaining fixtures. I mean, Andrew, would you make any changes to the team, barring sort of injuries, or would you keep it the same? As Joe says, you know, don't fix what ain't broke, or are there some players like Matoma who just come back in regardless?
I think we look slightly lost without Matoma to start with, but I think that's just, you know, whether he starts with Matoma rather than and just change it that way. But apart from that, I think he needs to just keep it as it is. I think they played really well. They all played really well together, so I don't think you need to make too many changes. For Pedro, I think he needs to wait his turn. You know, he kind of sacrificed that when he got sent off. So, you know, rather than bring him straight back in the team, you know, keep Welbeck up there and just it's just about keeping everybody with level heads and just kind of, because we've got a lot to play for. That's the thing as well. You know, we've got something to play for. We got, you know, It almost feels like we're in a two race here with Brentford at the moment. Kind of, although they've got better goal difference than us, but it's, if we can get something out of Liverpool, then brilliant. You've got to keep it. You've got to keep your hopes up. Liverpool aren't exactly, like you say, they've won the league, so they really don't have much more to play for because there's nothing else for them to do. So, but they're going to want to try and finish the season quite, in a good place rather than lose the last few games of the season. But we'll have to wait and see see what happens next week.
Yeah, certainly. And just Rodders, just to your point about Lamptey, if he is injured, I would expect him to be the only change we make. Aaron, what's your Aaron? What's your opinion on players coming back from suspensions? Are you sort of on the mindset if they've got to sit on the bench, wait their turn, or are you on the side of if they're good enough and someone like Pedro who can be a game changer, they come straight back in?
I would normally go for the game changer option. To be fair, I think he would have to start, in my opinion, but I don't know where he would start. If that makes sense. So for me, then he would kind of have to be on the bench. I don't think we'll see Lamptey again this season. I don't think. It looked like a muscle injury when he came off. So with Tarek, that's going to be like 12 months out. So we'll see him in the new year. So it'll be Matoma for him, and then swap Minter and Matoma around. Other than that, I don't really see why we would need to change. If anything, what he'll do, he'll drop O'Reilly because I don't understand why he takes O'Reilly off most of the time. And then play Pedro in the 10 if he's going to do anything along those kind of lines, perhaps. Might even go 4-4-2. Fuck it, why not? Play two up top. Why not?
4-4-2 is the new 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3. It's coming back, man. It's coming back.
Big up the 4-4-2. But yeah, that's the only way I could see him getting back in if you make two changes, and unless if Les Welbeck is not fit, then it's a straight swap. But other than that, I don't see a need to.
Yeah, I think don't as you said, Joe, don't fix what ain't broke. Michael in the comments saying I would leave Pedro on the bench. But yeah, thankfully, that's Fabian's problem. He has to worry about that, not us. So just as we close the show then, gents, I just want to talk a little bit about what some of the comments we've had tonight about sort of the off season. We will be doing a sort of a post-season show where we sort of review the season. We sort of look ahead to the summer, look about what we need. But I know some of you have been talking about the summer. So let's talk about this question from Phil. How many players do you think we'll lose over the summer? And can we keep the squad reasonably intact? This season, we've seen Ferguson and Ciso, Sarmiento, Buonanotte all out on loan. We've already talked about how sort of we're inundated with number 10s. I know Ferguson isn't a 10, but hey ho. Joe, let's focus on some of these players then. Ferguson and Ciso, Sarmiento, Buonanotte. How many of them realistically do you see still being here at the end of the transfer window?
That's a very good question. Maybe Ferguson. Maybe. I think maybe he's got the taste of trying to go elsewhere to revitalize his career, and it's then not worked out again. Hopefully, if we at least keep him during pre-season, he can have a sort of fully fit pre-season and get back to the player that we know he can be, and maybe show Fabian Herzl why he deserves to be in and around his matchday squad. Then he could possibly stay. In Ciso, I think is done. As Aaron said, I wouldn't mind seeing him leave. I think we could probably get a decent amount of money for him as well and invest it elsewhere. Sarmiento hasn't really had a look in for the last 2 seasons, maybe a little bit under the Zerbi, but even then he went out on loan. And Facundo's done really well at Leicester. So maybe I'm going to change my answer to Ferguson and Buonanotte have a chance of being here with us next season. And I really wouldn't mind seeing that as well.
Yeah, I mean, so much of it, of course, does hinge on preseason, what that looks like. You know, we saw Fabian use a completely different system at St. Pauli to what he's used at Brighton this season, and perhaps when he first came in, you would have thought we'd see more of those sort of players playing in those positions as like tens. Um, but yeah, it's not turned out that way. Buonanotte is an interesting one for me. As you say, Joe, I think he's done really well at Leicester. Seemed to get a real, started the season really well. It wasn't until what's his matey boy came in from ex-Man United that he sort of saw his game time drop. So he's an interesting one. And for me, I've long been a standing of Ferguson needs to go on loan to the Championship. Where do you stand, Andrew? Any of those players, do you think, are they still going to be here next season? Would you be sad to see them go?
I think Buonanotte, I think should have a chance should have a chance next season. I think he's had a lack of game time with Leicester. I think he deserves a chance to prove himself from the Brighton point of view, because he didn't really get much of an opportunity. Ferguson, I really can't see if Ferguson stays, he stays. But if he doesn't, then I think I don't know. He's at West Ham, and it's kind of depending on how he's getting on at West Ham. If he loves being there, then fair enough. But it depends on what the club think, what they want. When all these players do come back, they've got a big decision to make, and it's a case of watch this space to see what happens over the next few months once the season finishes, and see what happens.
Yeah, it's so much unknown. Of course, we haven't even finished this season yet, so it does seem a bit premature to be talking about this. But I think with Ferguson, unless we bring in another striker, which I don't see happening, considering we've got Welbeck, we've got the Greek chap whose name escapes me, and then obviously Ferguson returning from loan, and then maybe Pedro as a 9, 4 strikers. So, meh. And then finally, Aaron, I've left this one for you. Rumors doing the rounds today that Real Madrid are stepping up their interest in Bart Verbruggen, and apparently, I use that word, apparently, Brighton are interested in perhaps bringing in Kelleher from Liverpool or Trafford from Burnley as his replacement. Hypothetically, Verbruggen leaves, Kelleher and Trafford. Now Kelleher, really decent keeper, but Trafford, I'm sort of the opinion that is he much of a step up from Rushworth, who was in the Championship Team of the Season previous season, and Beadle, who's getting rave reviews in the Championship, or is that perhaps me showing my ignorance?
It's hard to tell how good a goalkeeper James Trafford is because in a Burnley team that didn't concede many goals, he obviously didn't have really a great deal to do in many of those games. Really, from when I've watched him, I would take Keller in a heartbeat. I think he would walk into most teams in the Premier League, minus probably obviously Liverpool's and maybe City. I think he's a better goalkeeper than David Raya. I don't think Raya's even that good. He's better than Onana. I mean, I'm better than Onana. But Nana is better than Onana. I feel like there's a lot better options in Trafford, and Keller is one of them. I don't know why Madrid would want him in Verbruggen. Not in a horrible way. It just seems very. It doesn't seem like a Madrid signing, if that makes sense. They have Courtois. They have a young Ukrainian guy, Lurin, I think his name is, or is either Ukrainian or Russian, one of the two. Don't get mixed up, but I don't see why they would need him. To be honest, I mean, if they offered like 70 million, I'd be like, yeah, cool, see you in a bit. Like, I'll pick him up from Brighton and take him to myself. Like, I have no real issues if the money's good. I just don't think it makes much sense for him to go there. It just seems very weird. I haven't heard this rumor either, so that's why it really threw me off. But
To be,
yeah, that's
to be
another
honest, you know what the rumor mill is like.
True.
It's probably a load of nonsense anyway. But as I say, like it was more the links to Kelleher and Trafford because, as you say, Kelleher I got. But
Yeah,
Trafford,
I mean, I'd rather have if we're gonna go for Trafford, you may as well start Rushworth. Really,
yeah, that was
and
my
I think
sort of
Rushworth
thinking.
should have a couple of games anyway. Obviously, not now. There's only 2 games left, but like I feel like he's kind of wasted the season here, really, or half the season. Where if I think we look at Beadle, for example, he's been in the Championship all season, playing games for Wednesday. At least he's getting game time. Where I think the likes of McGill, the likes of Cahill, the likes of Rushworth need game time at their age. I sound like an old man. But like they do. That's how you improve. You can train all you want, but if you're not playing, you can't. You can be fit, but you can't be match fit. There's the key thing there for me.
Yeah, the Rushworth one was really strange because, as I say, he was in the team of the season in the 23-24 season for Swansea,
Yeah.
I want to say. And then obviously he went to Hull, who were abysmal this season and couldn't get a game, which, again, I thought was a really weird situation, which is obviously why we recalled him and obviously Steely being out. But yeah, it was a really weird one. I don't know why we just didn't plonk one of the under 23s on the bench for the 5 games that Steele wasn't available for, and then send Rushworth back out on loan because he's obviously a good enough keeper to play in the Championship because otherwise he wouldn't have been in the team of the season the previous season. So yeah, that seems like, as you say, Aaron, a bit of a wasted opportunity for him. But I suppose if it was one of those where either bring in if you bring in Trafford, well, what's the point of having Rushworth, Beadle? I think, Michael, you said about Sherpen. I think Sherpen will be moved on. He's obviously been here for years and never really made that much of an impression. Really, I know he's gigantic, but he's not obviously been impressing Potter or De Zerbi or indeed Hertzler. So it would just be, it's an interesting summer ahead. Someone, Joe, Rodders, said, I think Matoma will leave. Big money will come in for him in the summer. How much big money, Joe, will it take for Karu Matoma to be pried away from our hands?
60 mil, maybe 60, 70 mil. I think he's clearly a player that still has a lot of years in him. I think a lot has been said about obviously his late start to real like good quality football. Obviously, he played in Japan for a long time, so he probably has on his side a little bit of an edge physically in terms of he's probably got good 4 or 5 years left in him. In terms of his his pace, it doesn't really have blistering pace and it's more technique. So I think he's quite lucky in that sense. Obviously, he wants to play Champions League football. I think that's why he turned down the big Saudi Arabia money, and that's why we turned it down as well, because I think the club are probably aware of his wishes of what he wants to achieve in his career. And I think obviously if he looks at our sort of situation and thinks he's not going to get Champions League football with us, he might seek it elsewhere. And he's probably a player that's given so much service that you'd probably not, like the club do, not stand in his way because he wants to go and achieve that. So, yeah, it will take big money because he's a massive player for us. But I think if the right offer lands and it's something that Karu wants to do, we'll be unfortunate in probably seeing him leave the club. But yeah, it's a weird situation with him. You're muted, Tom.
There's always one, isn't there? I'm going to ask Andrew and Aaron just for a figure, the figure in a hypothetical situation that it would take for them to want to part ways with Matoma before we sign off. Andrew, what would your figure be for Matoma to leave the squad in the summer?
I don't think there is a figure you can put on it, to be honest. I don't, the club don't need to sell him. So why even go down that route of even putting a figure on him? The club, there is no point in even trying to think of a figure because he's too crucial to the club. He loves the club. He loves being with the club. So, the outside have already tried to come in and put a price on it and try to take him away, and the club rejected it. So that just goes to show how much he's loved within the club.
Like it a lot. Yeah, I know this is going to sound really tasteless, but obviously he also gives the club a huge marketing opportunity in a part of the world that is just adores him. So, but Aaron, if you had to pick a number, would you pick a number like Joe? Would you think like Andrew that it's just there's no point? Where would you fall on the Mitoma?
It'd be higher. It would be in the high end of the 90s to 100 for myself, and I say that purely for the reason you just stated. It's not just a player; it's a commercial value as well. I think this year's probably been one of his worst in injury records. I would say, probably since his time here. Or has that been a bit harsh?
No, I don't think that's harsh.
I'm not surprised he turned down the Saudi move. I don't think that's it really in his career path, like Joe said. Yeah, that's in the ballpark of sort of 95 mil plus. And I would, again, a good sort of 20 mil of that would be purely because of the commercial side of it. Because you do get a lot of Japanese, Chinese people at the Amex on a game day. They spend God knows how much in a club shop on shirts. And that happens every game day. It's a lot of money. A lot of money.
Yeah, and I think it's just part and parcel of modern football now, isn't it? It's the marketability of your squad in different markets.
It's business, isn't it? It's a business at the end of the day. If you're going to find a player that may not be the greatest, but it's going to get you 15 mil profit from marketing schemes, and you're going to do it. Really, it's just. I mean, prime example is look at Mbappe to Madrid on a free. They're paying stupid ton of wages, but I guarantee you that money would have been made up by just the commercial alone. Ridiculous.
Yes, I think again, Paul Barber would probably cry if.
What number would you put on it, Tom?
I probably I'm a bit like Andrew. I think that the number would be such an insurmountable amount that it would just be ridiculous. And as we all know, we don't like putting figures on things as a club. We'll either just be like no or yes. I don't think there is he's 80 million. If you give us this, we'll give him that. We'll give him to you. For me, I'd probably, again, similar to Aaron, I'd probably go for the higher bracket. Many people might say, well, he's not worth that because he's, late 20s, sort of like in that peak decline era, in, bit injury prone, issues with his back, perhaps. But it's about what he gives the team. And as Andrew said earlier, we look lost when he's not in the team sometimes. He's that catalyst where he's that player that gets the ball at his feet and just anything could happen. He's sort of like the Premier League version of Anthony Knockout. So, yeah, it'd take a hell of a lot for me to be happy. We'd probably get offered like 90, 100 million for him, then spend a tenner from some lad from the Bosnian 6th tier who we'd sell for 100 million about 8 years later. So, yeah, who knows? But I certainly hope that he doesn't leave. I think that we will have a busy summer. I think there'll be quite a few outgoings rather than incomings. But yeah, we'll deal with that when the time comes. But all that's left to say as we sort of close in on 1 hour 20 is thank you to everyone joining us here live on the Albion Obsessed tonight. Thank you for your questions and your comments as ever. If you're joining us on YouTube, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Also drop your thoughts in any of the things we've discussed tonight. Let us know your figure for Mitoma, if there is one. What are your opinions on the outgoings in the summer? And what is your overall opinion on the season as a whole, because as I say, we're going to be coming to you with a post-season review, and it'd be nice to have some views on that before we actually do it. And again, of course, thank you to Aaron, Andrew, and Joe for joining me this evening. So all that's left to say, guys, is wherever you may be, whenever you may be, we'll see you next time. You take care. Ta-ra.